Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yesterday was a fun one with a handful of different storylines, and Kings, totally took care of business, and Golden One Center was maybe as loud as I've ever heard it. So I'm doing good.
Good stuff. Okay, and also joining us is Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
Gentlemen, I'm good. I think, to kind of piggyback off of what Brenden said, I think that was the best environment of the year. I know it's early. It's only 20 games, but hey, we've made it to 20 games, and the Kings are 11-9, and you're right. The storylines were many. No, that's a flag. That's a penalty on me, having my phone on. And I think... No, I really think that was just an incredible environment, atmosphere. Everything's culminating at the right time. And through 20 games, if you had them 2 games over 500, congratulations.
Culmination. That's an American Pie reference, of course, which Brenden has no idea what we're talking about.
No, he's never seen that movie.
That's about it.
Oh, that's tragic.
God damn it.
Come on, Brenden. Hey, we're back to our bullying ways. All right, let's take care of some business. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube, if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the Kings Beat podcast. We're rolling and killing it and having a great time. Also, we still cannot officially say what day we're going to have the happy hour, but it's coming. Trust me. And make sure to become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com. And
you know what? I say you just schedule it, and if our guest can make it, tremendous. If he can't, I think the three of us will be just fine.
We'll just do it. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could ever have.
Wait, actually, I better...
Hangover?
Hold on, let me...
Hangover.
Okay. There you go.
There we
Let's
go.
just make sure that Sean is not at a concert. Okay, yeah. If we did it on Thursday, a week from today, I think I'm good.
Okay, that's kind of the goal, is to do it next Thursday. The Kings are on the road, but we can figure stuff out, and that's the hope. That's the hope that we will have something on Thursday. But I never like to say yes until we're 100% secured and everything else. We got a lot to talk about. I think we could start with Thursday overreactions.
That was a Tuesday thing.
Just to get underneath Sean's skin. We'll do Thursday overreactions. The Kings clearly won the DeMarcus Sabonis, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Haliburton trade. After whomping the Pacers, clearly the Kings are the better team and got the better deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tyrese Haliburton is just ridiculously inefficient and not that guy. I mean, there's the only logical conclusion. Yeah.
Sean, what do you got?
I don't even know where to go with that. I mean, I don't want to be the dick, but let's fast forward a year, and DeMarcus Sabonis is gone. Then what?
Wow, Sean went there. Sean went there. He just throws down the gauntlet.
I'm just a huge dose of medicine, bro. You gotta, I don't know, just keep these things in perspective. That's why I hate overreactions.
Sean has not heard the spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down song, clearly.
Well, I've heard it, and I know what movie that's from. Brenden couldn't tell you a goddamn thing about that reference.
No clue. This has got to be a record for number of movie references 5 minutes into a pod.
That's Mary Poppins, buddy.
Yeah, it's Mary Poppins.
I know of Mary Poppins, but...
You know of all of these things you always say.
Yeah.
This is why I needed to meet your mother, because we needed to have a talk.
Yeah, we did need to have... Next time your mom comes to the game, me and Sean needs to maybe have coffee beforehand with her, and we need to know who raised this bean.
As long as there are no hot dog conversations, then we'll be all right.
Well, that's your fault, by the way.
No, it is, Sean. That is your fault.
I can see how you could come to that conclusion.
I also can see that. I just blame I blame both of you for the things that come out of my mouth at the end of podcasts, because it's not usually pleasant.
I can't even hop on 1320 without people dropping this brand new nickname. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, what's the nickname? I thought it was Brendy Bear.
No, there's a handful now that I hate all of them, so it's great. I really appreciate you guys.
Huh. Well, what's the new one?
Blank Dog Brenden.
Oh, Raw Dog Brenden? Jesus.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty out there.
Oh, no.
Is it, though? It's out there? I mean, again, you did this to yourself, sir.
I mean, I'd prefer to not be known for that, but, you know.
I can't even go into the media room at halftime for fear what I might see.
This is what happens when you don't put condiments on your hot dogs. This is exactly what happens. Okay, let's get to the game last night. Again, we joke around about the Tuesday overreactions, but like, look, Sabonis has been really, really good, and I think for some reason he gets ignored in this whole transaction, almost like it's the Kings just gave up something and got nothing in return. And like Sean, you brought it up. There's the outside possibility. There's a possibility. I want to say outside possibility. There's a possibility that he walks away after next season, but there's also a possibility that he signs a massive 5-year max extension and becomes the centerpiece of this franchise for the next decade. And he's also he's a guy that I believe personally will last in the league. That will have like really nice longevity, because he's not a huge above the rim player. And so I think for me, like, it was a gamble that the Kings probably had to take because they were going nowhere with the roster they had before. And we got to see some of the highs and the lows of both Tyrese Haliburton and Buddy Hield when the Pacers came into town. But the thing that stands out to me is the Kings are winning in a really, really strange way. And, I mean, they're really good offensively. They were really good defensively last night. But I don't think I remember a game where a team scores 137 points and their leading scorer has 22. To me, that was crazy. And we saw it earlier in the season when they dropped, what did they score on Brooklyn?
153.
Yeah, 153, and they had a 32-point scorer, and then they didn't have which was Terrence Davis, right? 31, 32. And they didn't have another player who scored 20. But to score 137 and Harrison Barnes as your leading scorer at 22 points, that's pretty remarkable, and I think it speaks volumes about how this team is rolling right now.
I'm actually trying to dig up the tweet that I sent because it was more than 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. And I thought to myself, what if Mike Brown doesn't unload the bench as he did smartly and probably a little bit too late in my opinion. He brought back Sabonis, I think, literally just to get him a big ovation, which kind of made sense and maybe pad some stats a little bit there. But they had, I want to say it was like 100. It was 126 points with 7:28 to play. And I thought the way things were going, and I mean everything was either a three. You had so many spectacular dunks and dunk attempts. I thought the 153 could have been in jeopardy, and I was serious. They're just playing an exciting brand of basketball, and I think the crowd is really feeling it, especially obviously here at home. And the way you got guys like Malik Monk, who brings this energy and this joy and this swagger and defense and playmaking. I mean, the guy checks so many boxes. There's an argument to be made. He might be among not just maybe among the most important players to this roster through 20 games. He could be the most important player to this roster through 20 games, as crazy as that sounds. And I think it's because how infectious that personality is. And it just spreads, man. Like, you just see it. I mean, they're trying to pry the joy out of Keegan Murray, who's just the, kind of a derp-faced, like, just like, I mean that. I don't mean that in a
negative way.
Insult.
There's a positive way to think of someone as derp-faced.
He just doesn't smile. He's just got rather stoic. I hope someone makes one of those shirts for us. And yeah, I mean, and here he is getting a beautiful feed from Domantas Sabonis, dunks it two-handed, kind of hung on the rim. Place is going nuts. He's coming back to the bench. Chimezie Metu makes him jump, and then Malik's just got his hands on him, just like shaking baby syndrome, trying to get him to smile and loosen up. And you can see the bench really, trying to do the same thing. And it's just fun. It's electric. It's fun. Terrence Davis had a dunk attempt that looked rather pedestrian at the time, And then in midair, he cocked it so far back that if he had finished that, might have been one of the most impressive dunks I'd ever seen, especially in a live atmosphere. Davion Mitchell's doing it on defense every single night. That block that he had last night, I know I'm just spitballing, but oh my God, that block he had on TJ McConnell was incredible. Yeah, man, and he had 50 Cent in the building to like the beam. Like, it's just, Bill Simmons even said, like, I never thought I'd see the day as much as he just, shoots at the Kings so often, saying that the Kings are the most fun team to watch next to his Celtics. And I kind of believe him.
Yeah. Brennan, where are you at after Sean just literally blew every topic that we have for the whole show?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything Sean said. I thought offensively it was really good to have a night where they kind of got back to being one of the best offenses in the league. The previous 3 games, again, I thought they were understandable losses. That second night of a back-to-back, and then the best team in each conference in Boston and Phoenix, but they only hit 9 triples in each of those games, which just wasn't very like them. And I assumed they would break out of that, but you need to see it. And that's absolutely what happened last night against Indiana. 16 made threes for 137. So I thought it was great to see the offense finally clicking, and aggressive Harrison Barnes is always great. And it coming from everybody was just amazing. I mean, 7 guys in double figures. That includes all the starters, and then Malik Monk and Terrence Davis as well. Sean mentioned Davion Mitchell, who I thought played a great game. I think he's been phenomenal on defense. Chimezie Metu, I thought, played really solid in his 17 minutes as well. He had 3 offensive rebounds, and I thought those were pretty big. I thought that there was like growth even in the process of those rebounds. I think the first 2, he brought him down and then went up right after he grabbed it. And one of them went in, the other didn't. But I think one of the best shots in basketball is after an offensive rebound, finding a 3-point shooter while the defense is kind of scrambling. And he did that on the third one, and they got a shot to go down. So I like seeing that little bit of growth throughout the course of the game. But I thought that it was about as good of a game as you could ask for the Kings. I thought the offense was totally killer, and again, proven that they're probably in the top 5 in my mind throughout the course of this year when it comes to offensive rating. And defensively, Coach Brown said that he felt like probably their most well-rounded, put-together defensive performance. So there's really nothing I don't even think that I could nitpick in this game. I'm sure Coach Brown could find something, but
he would. He definitely would. And I thought, for a game where De'Aaron Fox was not that impactful again on the offensive end compared to, maybe the games we've seen prior or just the way some of his teammates were rolling, defensively, man, he brought it. And he didn't get the assignment of Tyrese Haliburton a lot, but when he did, he couldn't really do anything. And Davion really put clamps on him when I think there were a handful of opportunities. There's 2 that stick out where he went one-on-one with Davion Mitchell, and it just went nowhere. Like, that was just not a good idea.
The time he tried to go through Davion going, like, straight at the basket, and Davion was just, like, in the middle of his chest. Like, there was nowhere for him to go, and he just kind of, like, throws up this, like, crooked-looking, like, shot. It wasn't good, yeah.
James, he chose poorly.
He did. You chose poorly.
There it is. By the way, can we mention that James has no hair on his face? We didn't mention that yet.
It's pretty different.
I decided to shave 15 years of age off my face today.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Yeah. I'm someone that can look much younger than I am, especially when I don't have a bunch of white hairs in my beard. It is jarring. I thought so myself. Jarring. A stat that I want to bring up while we're talking about some of these stats, Harrison Barnes has become like this. He's the linchpin. So you talk about like the most important players, Sean. When Harrison Barnes scores 13 points or more, the Kings are 8-1. And I don't know if Harrison Barnes knows that stat, but it's something that he probably should. And I think last night the impressive thing with Harrison is he had a moment where he just said, "Okay, I think I need to get to the line." And just went to the line. He was 9 of 10 at the free throw line. And that's what the Kings need from him. It doesn't have to be this like dramatic, flamboyant game from him. Just get to the line, hit some threes, get to the line, grab some rebounds. Don't do anything that is too crazy, and just play within yourself and then play defense. And I think like there are plenty of nights this season where we could point to where it's like, where in the world did he go? I certainly, even the last 3 games, like Harrison Barnes had completely disappeared in the last 3 games. But if you get him right and you get him engaged, he's still a very, very good player. And I think the Kings they need to focus on getting him involved as much as they do anyone else. I kind of, like, I don't know if you guys felt this, but like De'Aaron Fox didn't take a shot until, I want to say, late first quarter. He didn't hit a basket until the second quarter, and it was only his second field goal attempt. It feels to me like there's like a memo that has been sent around to this team that, like, we need to get Harrison Barnes going. We need to get Keegan Murray going. We need to get Kevin Huerter some open looks. Let's start there, and then we'll circle back to De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. And at least it feels like that the last couple of games. And I'm not sure if it's because Fox isn't 100%, which he did miss part of practice, right, this week. Well, I don't know. How do they describe that, Brenden?
They said that he was limited.
Limited.
Which, yeah, I think is kind of what you said. Probably just sat out for portions of it.
Probably the part where they actually had contact. He probably sat out. He's just a little beat up. And, like, people think that we're making excuses for De'Aaron Fox. It's like, we're not making excuses.
Who does?
Yeah. I like, look in the comment section. People think we make excuses for De'Aaron Fox. And I'll tell you, like, through the first 19 games, he was spectacular in 16 of them. And then he had 3 games where I called him out for having a bad game. And I don't think we were coddling him at all. We're just like, look, he's beat up. Sometimes that happens. You don't have good games. He needs to fight through it. Mike Brown says he needs to fight through it. He's switching shoes. We've talked about that nonstop. Like, it's really interesting to see. I've never seen a player wear 3 different brands of shoes in like a 2-week period. But I'll point out that today he once again was nominated for Western Conference Player of the Week. That gives him 5 nominations in 6 weeks and 1 win.
It was for the month. I mean, in fairness.
That's the month?
Yeah, it was
bad.
a culmination. It was a culmination of because Devin Booker got it out of the West as he should. Devin Booker was just insane, and his team is top of the West, so that plays a huge factor. But yeah, I mean, you're getting national attention, which is good. I'll say this, like, look, with the criticism with Fox is always keeping the foot on the gas. Like, you can see these stretches and then they go away, and we know what that looks like. And I think there are some who see him dip in production. See the team stumble a little bit after a really hot start and think, oh no, here we go again. And I think they're right to think that, to be honest, because you haven't seen him sustain that type of production. He don't get me wrong, he's a hell of a player, but I think there's people that have huge expectations from him coming off a year last year where he just wasn't tremendous for the first half of the season. So I think the concern is warranted. And it's true. He's banged up. So I think this team really could benefit from some not necessarily days off, but some just rehabilitation of the body and some maybe not take a physical day as opposed to a mental approach on one of these other days or something like that. But
that's what they're doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an off day. It's more of just the get in there and get treatment. So it's the right thing to do. You've got a day, a small quick day of practice on Friday before you head down to LA for this back-to-back with the Clippers and the Bulls. So managing the schedule is just paramount. And I think, to me, even though he didn't have the offensive production that you wanted to see, he brought it defensively, man. Like, that game, you could tell that game meant a lot to him, and it was unfortunate we didn't get to talk to him after the game, because it would be cool to see at least what his approach for that moment was, and now it'll even be better to see him reflect on it. So looking forward to that at some point. But and then to the Harrison point, by the way, it's no secret. I think I mention it all the time. I'm always wanting Harrison to shoot the ball. Getting to his spots can be a challenge, but Mike Brown always talks about that he's the easiest bucket for them from the free throw line to get to the player who can get to the free throw line the easiest. And I'm with you in trying to see that happen. And I just envision, like, fans with all the signs and creativity that they see I'm surprised we haven't seen like sign lady say Harrison shoot the ball or somebody like that, like, and just imploring him or just begging him to be a part of the offense because that record sticks out. I'm sure he knows about it, and it doesn't. I would imagine it also trickles back to previous seasons as well. If you were to look at the games where he was to have a baseline of 12 or 13 points and what that does for the team's success, I'm sure it's going to be in the positive.
Yeah, I'm definitely with pretty much everything on what that Sean just went through there. I think Barnes had a phenomenal night, 22 points. You mentioned the 9 of 10 from the line, James, but 6 of 9 from the field. Like for it to be 9 shot attempts and 22 points is just ridiculous production. And obviously I think they prefer more and as many quarters you can get from HB of him being aggressive, the better, but really just need more than one. It feels like pretty often it's the first quarter and then he'll be a little bit quiet afterwards. And I think that we definitely saw him keep it up throughout the course of that game against Indiana. And Fox had a really quiet first quarter. I was a little bit, maybe not concerned, but kind of monitoring and just curious what was going on at the end of that first. But I thought he really turned it on afterwards. I love the possession where he had Tyrese on him, and it looked like, I think it was Metu came up to like start to set a screen, and De'Aaron waved him off. And that's when he hit the little dream shake on Tyrese. I thought that was a great moment. So, I mean, great night from both of those guys and really everyone on the team.
Yeah. I think we're seeing this Kings team that's going to like have ebbs and flows throughout the season. And we're seeing the fans react to like these really crucial, like big moments especially for a fan base. Like, I think this fan base is like, you talked to Sean about how, De'Aaron Fox has had these moments where he kind of dips, right? And fans are like, the instant reaction is like, oh no, right? Because we've seen it before, where he's had hot streaks and cold streaks. I think the fans, like, they needed the win against the Pacers as much as anybody. That's something that this group is, when you lose 3 in a row, they instantly think 4, 6, 8, where's it going to end? Especially when you look at the 6-game road trip coming up. And some wins, like, in all honesty, they have a lot more meaning. And I don't mean because the fans booed Buddy Hield the whole night or because they cheered Tyrese Haliburton. I mean because, like, if you fall to 10-10 and then this weekend you got a back-to-back that's not easy, and then you hit the road for 6 games, like, this thing could snowball relatively quick, where you go from, losers of 3 straight to losers of, 6 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And so I really do think that, like, that one last night, like, the way the fans reacted, which I thought was pretty remarkable. Like, the fans, when they've shown up this year, I think that was the 4th sellout on the season. Like, the players are feeding off of this. And then, like, if you look at some of these guys' splits, like Kevin Huerter home versus road, it's like night and day. Like, he is not nearly as impactful on the road as he is at home. I really do give, like, this fan base a lot of credit for, like, trudging through 16 years of absolute trash to get to a moment where you at least have some positivity and seeing how that goes. And like, trying to hang on, like, to the razor's edge. Like, is it good? Is it bad? Like, what's going to happen? The beam, everything else has been, like, so positive this year.
Yeah, what's funny, too, about, like, even with Fox's production, like, we're talking about a guy who didn't even really struggle shooting the ball. He didn't really engage in that part so early, but he still finishes 7-11 with 19 points. Like, and we're talking about that as being kind of like a ho-hum type of game for him. So, I think it's great. Yeah, man. Like, there's just so much positive momentum around this organization. They're relevant, which makes me very excited to be able to cover a relevant Kings team again for a while. Even if it is early, hopefully they sustain that. And I think Mike Brown, maybe he was. I don't know if he was listening to our podcast. I don't think that's the case, but he's saying a lot of the same things we keep saying. I mean, think about last night. I'm asking him about snapping the skid and how they benefited from the practice day, because from what I had heard about that practice day, there was a lot of attention, obviously, to detail as typical, but it was almost like a recalibration. And particularly on the defensive end, where it just had, we harped on it at least I did, last podcast, where it looked like it had dipped again, like where things were just probably coming off of one of their poorest defensive outings that we've seen. And it was totally different against Indiana. Things were much, much, much different, and they pounced on him. And I think in asking him that question, he wanted to remind people that, hey, this losing streak that we had is against some absolutely quality teams, and even with our defense being dreck, they were able to come out and still put together a pretty decent game to have a chance to win the game, if not make it a competitive thing down the stretch. So certainly a lot of silver linings to be had.
Yeah, they moved to 22nd, right, in the league in defensive rating after that game, Brenden.
Which, if you're going to be one of the best offenses in the league, like that's about where you need to be in my mind if we're talking about still a play-in team, and you could shoot for higher aspirations if you keep cleaning up that defense even more. But I do think that's the X factor, as we've kind of talked about, and seeing growth there. Coach is always talking about trending upwards, and I think that's definitely what we're seeing on the defensive end. I want to go back to the crowd real quick, because I think that was the loudest I'd maybe ever heard Golden One Center. Obviously, you guys have been to a lot more games than I, so I'm curious your perspective. But my other one that rivaled it was probably the Bagley Summer League dunk over Mo Wagner. I thought Golden One got super loud at that moment. I'm just curious, like, from your guys' experience, how does last night compare to some of the other loud moments in Golden One? Because in that third quarter, and probably credit deserved to Crumble Cookie for when Miles Turner walked up, missed the first free throw. Scott Moak lets everybody know that if he misses the second, everybody gets a free cookie. Crowd got super hyped afterwards, and then the Kings went on a big run and kind of carried that momentum. But from the amount of times you guys have spent at Golden One, like, where did that rank?
Well, with respect to Jack in the Box, a guy missing two free throws to get 2 tacos at Jack in the Box, which will cost you about $1.07 with tax.
99
compared
tacos.
Compare that to free crumble cookies, which was new. That was the first time they had done that, and that place went freaking berserk. I mean, they but I forget who it was sitting next. I think it was actually Chris Tavares, my coworker at 40. He goes, Kings win the championship, like right off of the cookies, because that place, people had their arms in the air. They were so happy that Miles Turner missed 2 free throws. And that was always a fun gimmick that they'd had even before the pandemic. And my favorite part when they do that, by the way, is if the visiting player misses the first free throw, our friend Scott Moak, the PA announcer, he'll do one of these over the intercom, which is just so it's like this. Hey, if he does it again, but it's the sound effect that he makes is just second to none. I love it. So I don't know if it was the loudest. It was a great environment. I honestly think maybe Bogey's buzzer beater over the Lakers might be the one that just kind of sticks out the most to me. The Bagley dunk was incredible. I think the only thing I'd mention is, while that was an insane Summer League crowd, I don't think it sold out. But it was a hell of a moment, and it happened so early on in that game. So even the people that were in the building, there were a lot of people that probably weren't even at their seats yet.
I think one other game that I'll point to.
Go ahead.
When the Kings went into All-Star Weekend, DeMarcus Cousins gets traded during All-Star Weekend. They came out of that, and they were only a game behind Denver for the 8th seed, and they played Denver, I believe, in that first game, and the crowd had this weird murmur the whole early half of the game, and then the Kings found a way to step up and have this incredible third quarter, and they're starting, and it was almost like you felt a fan base, like the tension release and go, okay, we're going to be okay. Like, Cousins is gone, but we're going to be okay. And it was it was a crazy ruckus crowd, because a lot of people were super excited about what was happening with the team and the direction they were going. They were in the playoff hunt, and then they'd already bought tickets. Then Cousins gets traded, and I think that was close to a sellout, or it was a sellout. And that's one game where I thought, okay, this is crazy loud in here. And just not that we're sponsored by them, but have you guys had crumble cookies?
Oh yeah,
Brenden?
pretty great.
They're ridiculously sweet. I can have maybe half of one before I need to take a break. But
you have to buy the cutter. Do you have the cutter?
I have seen the cutter. No, I don't have a cutter. Of course, you have a cutter, James.
The cutter's like $5.
Yeah, well, he has like a whole fleet of boats. If you don't know,
the plastic cutter is like $5
with a crumble cutter.
Yeah.
By the way, I was thinking about this too when DeMarcus had the 56-point game. And I just found it. It was against Charlotte, and I remember how loud that was when he snapped his when he scored that. I was trying to think of another. He has. I know he's got. Let me see if I can find the other one. I know he has two. He had two 50-point games in that season, and they're also
back
the
to
two.
back.
Yeah, and they're well. Were they back to back? I know one was on my birthday. It was December 20th, 2016. The other one was a month later. Actually, no. One started at 125, so that was January 25th, 2016. The other one was December 20th, 2016, so almost a year later against Portland. And it looks like both of them were at home. He had 55 points against Portland, 56 against Charlotte, and I remember that. I remember the Charlotte one pretty well.
Yeah. On the other end of that, were you guys shocked at Buddy's reception?
No, I wasn't shocked, but I thought it was like. Here's the thing: the funny thing, even while I don't agree with booing, whether it be Marvin, like there's certain players that I'd be like, yeah, do it, and while I wouldn't have done it, Buddy's the right guy to do it. Like he's not going to hold any grudges. I think he'll find amusement in it. I was talking to him before shoot around that day. And I said, I think they're going to boo you. I literally said, I think they're going to boo the shit out of you. And he goes, I like it. That's okay. It's like fans are entitled to their opinion, blah, 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 blah. And then he, Buddy's the type of guy that just doesn't sweat shit like that. So I really feel like for as much as I was kind of like, really, I think it added to the environment. I really do. So, I think it worked. I thought it was fine, and he hit some big. I thought he had a pretty good game. He hit some big shots. Him and Jalen Smith were probably the two most impactful players in that game.
Yeah, Jalen Smith. I think he got injured, but I think he also won at least a daytime Emmy. He put up some of the biggest flops I've ever seen. Yeah, there was no Oscar in there, but because it was clear that it was like telenovela stuff. But I was like, what in the world are you doing? But it was impactful. He kept getting fouls on Sabonis while not getting touched and just doing crazy stuff. Then, and at the end of the day, he got popped. I'm sure that there was that the Kings didn't think about that when he did get popped, of all the flops that he'd had before that. But I ran into Buddy right before the game and chatted with him for a minute, checked in with him. One of the joys of covering Buddy Hield, which I think I've said this, but it's been a long time. Buddy's little girl is the cutest thing you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And after games, she would wait in the hallway with his lady and be so excited to see him. And then sometimes she would play coy and wouldn't go see him. Other times she would just run around, and she's just a doll. So, just checking in on him. I know Doug was making fun of him because, on the court, because Buddy had got diamonds put in his teeth on the sides. So he was messing with Buddy about that. But it's good to see Buddy because he is a good spirit, and he's fun. All the times that him and Jason Anderson had their back and forths, it was usually in fun. I mean, I'm sure there was some sort of little bits of anger and angst between the two of them on occasion, but I also thought a lot of it was fun. And, overall, I found him to be a good dude, a fun guy to cover, just frustrating. And so, I was surprised the fans were so negative towards him. I didn't know. I didn't know which way they would go on him. And I felt like it was a small group of them over to the right of us that started, and then it kind of picked up through there. Those guys came to the game to boo Buddy Hield, and then slowly it became a whole thing within the arena.
It was a thing. Well, the boos were loud. They were loud
as the game went
especially,
on.
Yeah, even in the intro. And I loved, credit again, Scott Moak, second time we get to mention him. That's your all-time 3-point leader right there in franchise history, and that's how he was introduced as such. No tribute videos from the Kings, which I was a little surprised by that.
You were also surprised that they promoted the game with Miles Turner and not with.
Well, can I set the record straight on that? Because I know some people within the organization were not happy about that. But I'm sorry. I applaud pettiness. So I am like Tom Petty. So if it's petty, I'm here for it. And when I saw that, I wasn't necessarily shaming them for it. I said, good for you. I was talking to Tyrese about it in the pregame, and he goes, "Are you surprised?" I said, "No, I would have done that. I would have put TJ McConnell up there. Are you out of your mind?" So, I think that I was a little surprised though there was no salute to Buddy. Look, 5 years as a King, I've seen them honor players for less. I'm not saying necessarily Tyrese. But yeah, 5 years as a King, a guy you committed a boatload of money to and ended up being your all-time 3-point leader in franchise history, passing a guy that you put their jersey up in the rafter for in Peja Stojakovic. Yeah, I don't know. I thought some sort of acknowledgement would have happened, but it didn't. And you know what? That's fine. Just kind of odd. I will say this too. I thought we also saw something last night that I hadn't seen before. I know it did happen last year. I never saw the moment, but we didn't see it at any point during his Kings career, but we saw Tyrese Haliburton pick up a technical, and boy, was he pissed.
He was pissed. And, it's funny. He doesn't like doing that stuff, especially his dad was in the building, his dad is one of the most pleasant people I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I waved to him, and he waved me over, gave me a big hug, and, just what a nice guy. I miss having those guys around. I mean, I prefer to cover winning, which I'm not going to pin on those guys completely, but I definitely, I think it's good that they've moved on. And you know what, I think it's interesting because what we're seeing now is a guy like Malik Monk fill in some of the pieces that we've seen, I think both as the player and the personality. So the player of Buddy with that high energy, high octane offense, and he's not nearly the mistake-prone player that I thought he might be or that Buddy is. But also, he's become like the heart and the soul of the team, out of nowhere. Do you guys feel that? I thought it was Mike Brown came into the press conference room, for people who haven't seen the clip, and he just opened up his press conference with, Malik Monk needs to be needs consideration for Sixth Man of the Year. And then Mark Spears, for some reason, made him fun of Mike Brown for not wearing socks, which ended up being Mike Brown lifting his foot up and putting it on the table with a sock on, and still saying that Malik Monk needed to be the Sixth Man of the Year. Then, I don't know if you saw this from the back, Sean. Mike Brown kicked the table and it was hanging on by a thread. He almost.
I saw you get up.
Oh no! I had to race. There was maybe an eighth of an inch of the little cup on the bottom of the leg that was holding on to the edge of the stage. He almost kicked the entire table off the stage, which would have been another classic Mike Brown moment on this season. And I think it's fun. The things that we're pointing to now is Malik Monk is just becoming so much more than what anyone thought. Mike Brown is a big piece to that. Malik Monk will tell you, he's empowered him. But also just the joy that we're seeing from guys like this, from Mike Brown, from Malik Monk, I think it's pretty cool. Brenden, your first season, you got to cover just chaos and direct. There were press conferences where you literally coming in were I don't know what to say in tonight, and I said, you don't have to say anything. You can just sit back and watch what's happening, because we know what's about to happen, that a coach is about to lose his job, and then a coach does lose his job, and all these things. But this year, you're getting to see something that, to be honest, rarely I've seen in my career.
Yeah, there were definitely a handful of times last year that I was I don't know how to approach this. It feels like questions that maybe go a little bit beyond just what's going on the floor. But, weirdly, last night I kind of went into the presser also thinking, I don't really know what to ask. They kind of just kicked their ass, which is totally on the other end of it. And obviously great to experience. But I think to your point on Malik, I think that he has become kind of the personality of the team. I guess maybe I don't want to like single him out as the personality. I think there's other personalities on this team as well, but I think that his energy is infectious, and it's both on and off the court. You know, I think that he has he plays with great spirit, and obviously is super acrobatic, and I think highlight plays are kind of a regular for Malik, but he's really good at also getting his teammates involved. Like Sean mentioned earlier, trying to hype up Keegan Murray a little bit after his dunk is fun stuff. And Coach talked about how important it is to have a personality like that. Like Coach said, you know, he'll have days where maybe he's feeling a little bit quiet, but then he'll look over at Malik Monk and he's just chatting up a storm with everybody, and that kind of lifts him up. So I think that there's a tremendous amount of value in that. And Malik even said after their loss to Phoenix, I believe it was, I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much like, I'm not going to let us come apart. I'm going to make sure that we all stay as a team on the same page, believing. And there's a lot of off-court value in that. I think, like you mentioned, a little bit of a comparison to Buddy in a way. I think almost like his personality somewhat reminds me of Tyrese in a way. Like I just think that it's really good for bringing the team together.
Yeah, I'm going to point out this weird stat that, and then I'm going to make a point about it once I point it out. Malik Monk has scored 16 points or more in 7 games this season. The Kings are 2-5 in those games, including losses in his 2 highest output games, the 30-point and the 27-point. He scored 24 against the Warriors in a loss. He scored 19 against the Heat in a loss, and 16 against the Warriors again in a loss. And the reason I bring these stats up, this is the first time that I think I've ever seen a player that when they have this kind of stat, like when they score more, the team loses, that I'm going to say that the reason he scored more in each of those games, I can remember each of those games, was because he was literally trying to will his team to victory. It was not a selfish thing. He was not the reason they lost. The only reason they had any chance was because of him in almost every single one of those games. And it's a very different thing. You know, there are games where he doesn't score a bunch of points, where he gets 8 points. And those are all wins because he doesn't need to be that guy in those games. So I think he's become one of those players that, like, he's sensing what the team needs. I also, like, I talked to him in the locker room in pregame, and I think that he's 24 years old, just like half the team is 24, right? So Monk, Fox, Herter, Davion are all 24, Sabonis 26. You know, they're all around the same age. This is that moment in a player's career where he literally finds the right place to go in the right time of his career to shine and to, like, become who he was supposed to become. And I liken it a little bit to Bobby Jackson, because I think Bobby Jackson, before he got to Sacramento, was kind of searching as well. And then he gets here, and then boom, it's like this magical moment. Same thing with Doug Christie. Like, these guys, like, they were searching for the right place, a basketball home, and they just kind of stumbled into it. And of course, Monk does it because De'Aaron Fox recruits him, but he also came here knowing that Kevin Huerter was going to be the starter. Like, you almost know that for sure. They traded for him. They traded for Huerter and signed Monk on the same day, but they'd already had conversations, so they knew what was happening. And I just think he's just, like, again, it's a moment for a player where it all comes together at one point.
Yeah, and he embraced the role from the get-go. It wasn't any, hard feelings about not being able to be in that starting rotation with his buddy. You know, he knew that the role he was going to play for this team, and I think what some of the things he benefited from was a couple scuffles along the way. You know, some things of his own shortcomings that he had in Charlotte, and going to LA for the year he was there, I think really represented a really big, well, and I'm talking about last year, obviously, he had the career season, but I think it represented a really big shift. And I think most people, when they have a career season like that, you're thinking, okay, I'm going into free agency. My next stop, I'm going to be a starter. I'm ascending now to this place where I should be here now, as you mentioned, James, 24 years old. And instead, he has the maturity level to recognize the situation in Sacramento, accept and embrace the role that he has in front of him, knowing that he is fully capable of being a starter, but knowing the impact that he has off the bench is so crucial to this team, and he gets to play so free. He gets to play his way. He doesn't have a coach, riding him the entire time. Certainly, I wouldn't call him a mistake player, but he's like Brenden had mentioned, he's not quite the Buddy Hield mistake player, but he's certainly out there, sometimes taking a little bit too many risks, especially on the playmaking end of the ball. But I'm telling you, when he shoots the ball, I've got confidence in it. Some of these up and unders, these reverses, I mean, he has the ability to finish over people, and he's just so electric. And so seeing the way he's played in previous stops, knowing what he meant to Kentucky, and just seeing his growth, this, I think, it represents just such I don't even know if it's the perfect landing spot for him, because I think there's probably teams that he could probably benefit even more than the Kings that might be projected to finish a little higher than where the Kings are. And the fact that he wanted to be here, I think, is just it's almost better. It's almost better than seeing him go where he could have been a little bit more impactful. I think it shows a real maturity on his level. He's obviously following the payday, so let's not forget that. But I started the podcast by saying it. He could be them right through 20 games at least. I think he's their most important player that they have. I think he's the person that's helped give them their identity, whether they like it or not. It is a fun brand of basketball. I don't feel that the team has had this type of energy around them since they were the Scores, and this is almost that's why the Scores was so funny, because you weren't really good. I mean, you were it was smoke and mirrors. This team, you're through 20 games, you're wondering, is this a good team? And I think some people have already come to the conclusion that they are, and I think there's some people that are probably leaning to the way that they are. But through 20 games, you pretty much know what your identity is as a basketball team, or at least know what you're capable of. And I think this is what they might be right now. And I think it all falls to Malik Monk for giving them that identity, giving them that swagger, keeping things loose, and having that leadership ability that you might not have thought he'd be a leader here when he first arrived in Sacramento, but to the point of, I'm not going to let us separate. He's keeping things completely loose. He's also very professional, and he's funny as hell. I wish I could interview him after every single game, practice. Every time PR comes in, I'm always like, yeah, we can talk to Malik, because you're going to get some entertaining stuff that isn't just wildly crazy. Like, it's insightful. He's an incredibly bright person who has a really good feel for the game and knows what's important to do for his team. And if he has to be a prankster one day, or a jokester the next day, or a leader the next day, it seems like he's fully capable and comfortable wearing all these hats for this basketball team.
Yeah, do you know if he got around to popcorning Chimezie Metu's car?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to read a quote.
It's a long season, Brenden. Long season.
It is. They like to get those guys, especially when they're up, and not back down in Chile. He said, "Of course I want to be a starter." This is what he told me yesterday in the locker room. Of course I want to be a starter, but this team needs me to come off the bench, and I think that's best for the team as well. I'm just accepting the role and thriving in it. Brenden, that's mature.
It absolutely is, and I think I would imagine that it's helpful that your coach is coming out and vouching for you to get Sixth Man of the Year, and I think he'll be in consideration for that. And coaches said a lot throughout the course of the season, and it's a common thing that said, what really matters is who's closing games. And Malik is closing games. Their closing lineup more often than not feels like it's De'Aaron, Malik, Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, and Domantas Sabonis. And maybe that'll alter some nights as the year goes on if Keegan's having a good night, or maybe you need Davion's defensive presence. But I think Malik has been closing games, and I think that's what really matters. He's still getting a good chunk of minutes more often than not. He's sixth on the team in minutes per game. 22 a night is what they have him at. But I think that it is, I like that he acknowledges, of course, I want to be a starter, because it's just being real. Like, I would imagine most people do. But it's not like you could tell that he is genuinely fine with coming off of the bench and thriving in that role.
There was a moment in the game last night that caught my attention, and I think it speaks to exactly what we're talking about. Terrence Davis had a dunk. Malik Monk got a steal and hit Davis again for like a crazy dunk, like back to back. And then like And then we got to the point where Terrence Davis tried to go baseline and kill somebody and picked up the foul. But then right after that, there was a play where Terrence Davis got a steal on a wide open breakaway, and Kevin Huerter was maybe 2 steps ahead of him. And I think everybody in the building was like, oh man, Terrence Davis, runway, wide open. He's going to put on a freaking show. And he dumps it down to Kevin, and he gave it to Huerter for the two-handed, like, standard 6'7" white guy dunk. And you're like, oh, Terrence Davis just did what Malik Monk did for him 5 plays before. And that's like, it's defining. Those are moments where you're like, okay, I think this can work. I think it can be. Like, if they're all going to share like this, and they're all going to take turns, and it doesn't matter if De'Aaron Fox scores 19 or if he scores 32, it doesn't matter. Like, what he's doing on the court, still, you have to defend him in such a different way because he's so good that he's leaving it open for other guys. And he's okay not putting up all these huge numbers every game. The only thing he's worried about is winning, and that's what it kind of feels like with most of these guys. They're living and dying not by their own stats, because if they were living and dying by their stats, Sabonis would have like 8 triple doubles at this point, because he's like right there every single game. If he knew and was worried about it, he would have a bunch of triple doubles. He's just not worried about it. Just like Fox, I don't think is worried that he scored 19. That move that Fox made on Tyrese Haliburton, it was one of the most beautiful things I've seen. Holy cow, that was incredible. And like the slow motion view of it. But it's because he can do that, you have to defend him a specific way, and it opens everything up for everyone else. And I think they're all just feeding off each other, and how each of them are uniquely put together in a place where they can help this team win, at least at this point.
Could you tell how pissed I was that Terrence Davis gave that ball to Kevin Huerter?
Oh, you were pissed because you had the camera ready.
I was seething.
Seething.
And
to
be honest,
Chris Tavares or something.
To be honest, like, it looked like Kevin Huerter was kind of like, really? Like,
Bro.
he's like, you're giving it to me?
You know what, though? If Kevin Huerter felt that, he should have flipped it up off the backboard and said, go get it. That's what he should have done, because Terrence Davis is still trailing. And you can almost see Terrence, he got the ball, he took low and step, he's like, oh, I should do the right thing. And he bounces past to Huerter. I'm like, oh, no.
Terrence Davis might not be interested in a dunk unless he can body someone.
That's true. He's been fun. He's been good.
Great. Yeah.
Brendan, I know you've pointed to Davion Mitchell being really, really good in the last 2 weeks. I think so too. Like his pace out of nowhere. Like, you remember the one game that he started because Fox was out, the Kings dropped like a full 2 points in the pace race. They went from like almost 103, a pace of 103 to like 101 in one game. And I was like, oh, that's bad. This last couple of games, it's like someone shot Davion Mitchell out of a cannon. He's flying up and down the court. And it's not just on the defensive end. He's like engaging and getting the team involved in the offense quicker. He's pushing the tempo. All of a sudden, the Kings have like the 4th highest pace in the NBA. And they'll be the number 1 team in pace. I mean, it looks like that in the next couple of games if they keep up what they're doing right now. And then Metu is the other guy. Like, those rebounds that Metu had in the first half, like, what do you have, 6 rebounds in the first quarter? And I asked him about the rebounds after the game. He's like, man, that's who you should be. It's not who you want to be, but it's who you should be. Go get some rebounds. He was flying up in the air with one hand. Then he started doing those crazy, like the alley-oop stuff he does is amazing as well, where he's catching balls behind him and stuff. It feels like that second unit led by Malik Monk is kind of finding its way.
And they need to. I think that we mentioned on the last episode, it kind of feels like there's 7 reliable players on this roster, and flirting with an 8 with kind of Terrence Davis in my mind. And he's starting to get a little bit more established. He's definitely still the guy that it seems like Mike Brown coaches the most in game. And I think it's credit to TD for being very receptive to that coaching as well. But I think that some of these other guys could totally settle into their role. I think that Metu I thought that his presser was very weird. yesterday, but don't need to get too deep into that.
Why?
There was just a weird energy. Like, they just whooped the Pacers, and I felt
not
like
too high, not too low, man.
But I just felt like Metu was still talking of, like, I still got the vibe of he feels like he should get more opportunity.
You want that from him, trust me. Like, players like that, he's had to scrap for everything.
Yeah.
You know, this is a guy who most people didn't think would have an NBA career. And here he is. I mean, you know, we had a discussion back in the offseason about we were discussing whether or not Chimezie Metu would play a role on this team.
Yeah.
And I said yes. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but this is the type of stuff that Mike Brown envisions for him. He has guys that have to be accepting of roles. And you mentioned, James, about the rebounding and trying to pry that out of him. It's like he's playing he plays a very specific role for them, and he can be a frustrating player from what we've seen before. And you could see me, you know, pound the table at times last year when you know, under Luke Walton, when he would, you know, they were hoping he could be a stretch four and try to turn him. It's like that team was trying to mold players into something that maybe they couldn't be constantly, because that's what they needed. You know, they needed that to be competitive. And with this Mike Brown team, with the additions that they've made, these guys are playing very, very, very specific roles. And, you know, anytime he can do an offensive rebound, or him or Davion Mitchell or Malik Monk or whoever it may be can draw an offensive foul, just look over at Mike Brown. The guy loses his freaking mind celebrating like a rec league coach. And, you know, that think of just rewind. I know we're talking so much on the Pacers, but the way Mike Brown pulled Keegan Murray aside so early in that game, I think it was 7-1 or 5-1 maybe, to start the game. Mike Brown burns a timeout, and he's coaching up Keegan Murray, just like we saw the other day where, forgive me, I forget who it was, but in the previous game, that he did with Terrence Davis, and then Terrence Davis goes out and makes the play. You know, these are these attention to detail that he has, and, you know, it's all good when you're winning, and who knows what it looks like if you lose. Maybe you lose some players along the way, or guys might not buy in at some point. Whatever the case may be, it's like Chimezie Metu is like the living embodiment of that. And his mentality and his approach to the game, he's always going to be that hungry player. He's going to be the guy that constantly wants more. I mean, every player thinks that they're the best player in the league, which is just absurd, right? I mean, but even someone like Chimezie Metu is going to think, no, I could be LeBron James. I could be this. And you want your players to think that way. You want them to have the utmost confidence.
I want them to have that, but I also want them to come to a realization at some point of who they should be in the league and play to their strengths.
Right.
I mean, they have to.
Don't you? You're probably seeing that right now.
For sure. Yes.
He's
on the court.
Begrudging.
Yes.
I think what Brenden is saying, he's begrudgingly falling into a role that will actually keep him in the league.
Correct.
That's what he is, and that's great. I think it's really hard for young players to figure out that they're not going to be LeBron James. That they're, you know, even for Chimezie, he's not going to get to be Brandon Clark. He's not going to get that many minutes. He's not going to have that type of role unless he really, really gets good at what he's supposed to be good at, and not what he thinks he's supposed to be good at, what the team needs him to be good at. And it's such a hard thing for young players to get in their head. And I hope it works out for him. I do, because he's incredibly athletic. You know.
Well, and he's also very smart. Like the guy.
Oh yeah.
The guy looks at the game. He looks at the game a lot differently than I think a lot of us do. And I think sometimes when he's asked a question, it's a lot like Neemias Queta in a way, where he'll kind of be like, well, yeah, it's just basketball. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that it's not that hard. It's what I do. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I feel like they have a very similar wavelength when you're talking to them, and the way that they read the game and speak of the game. And every player wants to play more. Every player wants to have a more impactful role, and he's just playing the role that's given to him. And I think having the tutelage and the having someone like Mike Brown over him is really benefiting him right now. Who knows where it goes to see, but I think he's going to be an impactful role on this team. I thought so in the summer, and I still think so. And right now, it might be even coming together a little quicker than I thought.
I think this is the best basketball I feel like I've ever seen Metu play. I think to all the points we just said, like I was just a little surprised by the way the presser went, but I get it. I think your point is great, Sean. Of course, that's just the guy that he is, and there's positives to that. But this is the best basketball I feel like we've seen him play, and he does look bought into the role when you see everything on the floor. Like he had one triple yesterday that he didn't hit, and then I think he had an opportunity to take another one. I think it was the next possession or a couple after, and he ended up passing it up and kind of getting it within the flow of the offense. And I think that right there is just growth compared to last year, which is credit to Metu for buying into that role and credit to the coaching staff for kind of defining that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. A lot of good things happening. Of course, it's easier to talk about the good things that are happening when the Kings are winning. The 3-game losing streak. Maybe Tuesday's podcast was a little more doom and gloom. Today's podcast is a little more pleasant because they look better as a team. We missed something completely in the last episode that, first of all, apologies to Brenden for missing something. So
was your birthday?
No, we're going to go to the business of basketball. And Brenden wrote a very, very good long-form piece on Luke Loucks and De'Aaron Fox and sort of the summer of love between the Loucks and Rasay, Caldwell, and De'Aaron Fox. And like if you haven't read it, Brenden wrote it over at the King's Herald. I don't know how we didn't discuss it on the podcast on Tuesday, but everyone go over there and read it. But I think it brings us to like a good question where a lot of the times in the business of basketball, we like to talk about sort of, growing up in the industry for Brenden and for me and for Sean and all that stuff. And so Brenden, I just want to ask you, like, what was the process like for you to get to sit down with an assistant coach, actually get a one-on-one, which is always a battle with media relations, just because that's, you're a young reporter and they don't like to give one-on-ones with anyone to young reporters. But like, what was the process like for you and sort of crafting the story that you did?
Yeah, I mean, a handful of no's before I got a yes and a hit on somebody that I could get a one-on-one with. But like Luke was amazing and super easy to talk to. I think that this is the second one-on-one I've had. The other was Keon Ellis, ironically.
Well, you're
I guess
maybe
not ironic. I might have asked, but yeah, of course. It's a work in progress. Getting it designed.
Or you drawing
still.
like sculptor drawing?
Yeah,
does it fit on the lower? Does it fit on the lower back, or you?
No, it definitely doesn't. No.
I
think that we were settling on like the shin sort of area. We're figuring it out.
That's gonna hurt.
We're figuring it out.
It's him laying on his side like Titanic with Leo and Kate Winslet.
I know that movie.
Get that tattoo like one of the French girls, huh?
Exactly. No, but Luke was great. I mean, it was probably one of the easiest people I could have talked to. I mean, it was a very obvious topic, which I think made it easy, and just kind of diving into the details and specific of the work that he did with De'Aaron. And Luke and Jordi Fernandez were the two first calls, from my understanding, that Mike Brown made when he got the job. The two guys that he was on the Nigerian national team with. Luke spent a handful of time with him in Golden State. And I mean, he did all the heavy lifting for me, really. I think the big three things that he pointed out and that changed for De'Aaron throughout the course of this offseason when it came to the specifics of his jumper is shot selection. And these numbers are prior to their last two games, but De'Aaron Fox was shooting 11.8% of his shot attempts last year were considered wide open on NBA stats, which is no defender within 6 feet. This year that had jumped up to 17.7% from the 11.8 in the year prior. So I think that he's taking better looks. And I think a product of that, one of my favorite quotes that from Luke in that process was that Steve Kerr had a saying with Kevin Durant that the ball gravitates towards the best people on the court. And he didn't think that Fox fully believed that because it hadn't for him. And I think we're seeing that process. And the other two specifics were just little fundamentals of his jumper, like holding his follow through, making sure his balance was right and he's jumping forward rather than backwards and not fighting against his own momentum. But it was fun. It was like I said, the second one-on-one I've had, and it's a learning process. And the more that you get to talk to these guys, as obviously you guys know, it just makes this entire experience more enjoyable, because now I see Luke in passing and have a short conversation and things like that. So I had a great time doing it. Like I said, Luke did all the heavy lifting and was just a blast to talk to, and happy with how it turned out.
Who was your first? The first
Keon. It was Keon at Summer League. In that one, I butchered. Let me tell you, I really thought I did bad. I drew a blank in the middle of it and like pulled up my notes, and I don't think I did as bad as I thought. Right, but listening to it back, I think it was one of those things of like I had to, in a way, to learn moving forward. But yeah, I didn't think I did great on that one. I was happy with the Luke interview though.
Sean, who was your first interview?
Oh, Jesus.
1v1.
Well, it was definitely on a celebrity golf tournament. It was, I couldn't even tell you. I'll tell you this. One of them, I'll remember one of my first ones that went wild was, I'm in Tahoe. I'm young. I just started working at KHTK at the time as a illegal intern, as I like to call it, helping out the Golf Talk radio show. And I had asked Charles Barkley several times if he would talk to me. He's talked to me before, and he and I usually had a pretty good relationship on the driving range, and he kept telling me no. And then finally I had decided I was going to talk to a lot of the broadcasters around, because at the time we had, Ernie Johnson and Craig Sager. They weren't playing. They were actually part of media there covering, broadcasting the tournament. Doc Rivers was a part of it, but Ahmad Rashad was there, who was part of NBC Sports, NBC event. And I've got Ahmad Rashad off to the side. Barkley had told me no for the umpteenth time, probably about 10 minutes prior to that. So I'm with Ahmad Rashad on the driving range, and then Charles crashes the interview, and I still have the tape somewhere, and he literally goes, "What's the question, man? If it's not that good, I'm going to smack you." And this is all on my tape, and I immediately pivot to Charles, and Ahmad goes, "You don't do that." In his cadence and the way he talks, he's like, you were talking to me. Charles crashed the interview. You still direct the questions to me, and he gives me this lesson in broadcasting, and it ends up being 3 or 4 minutes of just crazy between the two of them. I didn't really have to do much. I then try to pivot back to Ahmad Rashad. I'm nervous. I stumble and I go, "Now, Mr. Mashrad," or something like that. Totally butcher his name. And Barkley goes, "What's his name?" And then they both have a moment. I mean, it was just a total shit show after that, but it was funny. We played on the golf tournament, or on the Golf Talk radio show. And I don't know, I had a lot of people around the radio station that were, both giving me grief over it, but also saying, "Hey, kudos to you. You didn't back down. You didn't, totally wet your pants, and still were able to kind of pull something from it." I would disagree. I cringe when I listen to that interview even today, but
you kept it.
I've kept all of them, man. I got I've got interviews with, I was really close to Joe Morgan, and, I have interviews on micro cassettes and stuff that I kept all of those, and, just a bunch of dudes that have come through the golf tournament and various golf tournaments that I worked in, it's a lot of fun, but first of all, you're always going to be your worst critic. I get a lot of people who, I was always taught, you want to try to make time for people who are interested in trying to get into the business. It's kind of this, pay it forward, pass down what you know, share your experience. And it's always odd when I do it, because my path is so different than what the norm is. But then you think about when it all comes down to it, you're still doing your own thing to try to make a name or a way in this business, and just kind of make sense of it all. And you just remember that moment that you had, because like you said, you're looking back at Keon Ellis and you think it's an abortion of an interview. And maybe 10 years from now, you'll think of the same thing, but you'll remember, those ones that you may have cringed at to where you are now. And trust me, you can still be where you are now, even 10 years later, and still have cringy moments. I do it all the time, but I always say people go, "Oh, you can ask that's a stupid question." I go, "Yeah, but a stupid question can elicit a brilliant response." So I always keep that in the back pocket.
And there are stupid questions, and there are also stupid people who ask stupid questions.
Right.
There definitely
are.
I do repeat that quote from Sean to a lot of people. I'm not going to lie.
Which one?
That stupid questions can still get great answers.
Oh, put that on a T-shirt.
I've seen it a lot.
Put it on a T-shirt. I will tell you very quickly my first one-on-one interview, which I'm surprised still that the Kings gave me. In my first year covering the team was, of course, DeMarcus Cousins' first year in the NBA. And I knew I had asked, can I get a one-on-one? And they said, yeah, that's fine. I talked to, Chris and Devin and like, we'll give you a one-on-one. We'll figure it out. Like, who do you want? So I'm like, can I get back to you? They're like, yeah, you can get back to us. So I called my buddy Toby, who was part of the reason why I got into this. And then was the director on Small Market Big Heart, and edited everything like seamlessly for a guy who had no idea what he was doing. Anyway, he goes, well, why don't you ask for Cousins? And I'm like, oh, no way. That's like 19-year-old Cousins is like a master's degree in interviewing. That's what you need. That's not like he was difficult in scrums and difficult in things. We'd even got into it at one point because he was disrespectful, I thought. And so I was disrespectful back to him, like during his rookie season. So I asked him a question, and then he didn't want to come and talk to media, and so he smarted off to me, and then I asked him, my follow-up question was, what was it like to wear the Princess backpack everywhere? That he was wearing at the time, and so we kind of got into it a little bit. But I asked for Cousins, and I sat down with DeMarcus, and it was like 10 minutes, and it was spectacular. He's very bright, very engaging, just different, right? And I remember like I had them written down, like some questions, other stuff I was just kind of flowing, but my last questions were if he was going to be an all-star. He said, yes, I'll be an all-star. I said, where are you going to be in 5 years? He said, the best big man in the NBA. And I said, are you a Hall of Famer? And he goes, that's the plan. And I remember it like it was yesterday, like looking at this 19-year-old gigantic human being who was very rough around the edges, and like he was abrupt, like in a lot of ways. But like I got done with it, and I'm like, all right, that went okay. And I transcribed it, and I think it went well. And yeah, but that was a long time ago. He was an interesting cat.
Galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, it was a galaxy far, far away. It seems so strange now that he's not even in the league. Yeah, so many guys that we've covered aren't in the league, like, from 2 years ago. This Kings team, man.
What are you saying? What are you saying, James?
What am I trying to say? Like, DeQuan Jeffries just got signed by the New York Knicks on a two-way deal.
Two-way, yeah.
Yeah, that means that we have, I think, 6 players from from 2 seasons ago that are no longer in the NBA. Not 7. It's that many.
Everyone's getting a comeback.
It's an improvement, yeah.
2 years ago.
Robert Woodard's next up.
Chimezie. Yeah, Justin James. Jabari Parker.
Justin Jackson's on the Celtics, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Jabari Parker is on Whiteside. Glenn Robinson III. Like, Nemanja Bjelica. Holy cow. I think we just hit 7. Yeah. Yeah. Tough times here in Sacramento. That's not even digging into the other guys that they signed midway through, the Luke Kings of the world, and the other guys that like pop in the mid-season. Yeah, those were like opening night roster. I think there's 6 or 7 that were not in the NBA on this opening night.
We had mentioned the scores. Damon Shumpert's not even in the league anymore.
Yeah, but see,
that
was
even that
at
long
least
ago. 4
that
years?
was 2018, De'Aaron's second season. So 4 years.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Sheesh. Okay. I think that's going to wrap us up. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Brenden, what do you got for us?
Luke Loucks did recommend me a coffee place in downtown that I'll give a shout out to because I thought was great. It's Temple Coffee.
Oh, yeah.
What? You've not heard of Temple?
I had not, no. I hadn't gone out. I had not explored enough until recently. I'm expanding my horizons.
Brenden has not been outside very much in his life.
No, he hasn't.
But I'm working on it.
So. Wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, full of wonder. He's going to be out there going, wow, look at the city.
Well, there's Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's a Zocalo.
Oh, have you been to? I took you
I
to
went
Zocalo.
with you. Yes,
That's right.
yes.
We went to Zocalo. I forgot about that last year.
He's like, so this is Makuni.
Have you been to
I got
Makuni?
that one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's some good spots downtown.
I keep saying it. Brenden just became sort of a neighbor, I think. So I'm gonna keep him out late past his curfew. We're gonna paint the town red.
You got me at 10:10 the other day. That place was great.
Oh, you went?
Yeah.
Oh no, I did go. Yeah,
Sean so old he doesn't even remember what happened.
dude. No, I did not even do that on purpose. No, I remember that now. Yeah, there's a lot of commotion outside.
Uh-oh.
On my end?
No, not your end. No, just when we showed up that day.
Oh yes, there definitely was.
I don't even want to know. Okay, Sean, final thoughts?
I don't think I have anything. R.I.P. Gaylord Perry, and congratulations to Rockland's Logan Webb, since right before the podcast, James reminded me about his big honor to be able to play in the World Baseball Classic. That's going to be kind of fun next year. And I have a nice back and forth right now with Kevin Herter and even Franklin Cardicelli about Aaron Judge, and they both are Yankee fans, and so me being the resident Giants fan and the shit talker that I am, letting them know about it. I said, hey, I told Kevin Herter, I said, hey, if the Giants somehow manage to get Aaron Judge, you will not hear the end of it.
For 4 years, because Kevin Herter's under contract for 4 years. Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
He will hear it every single day.
I'm with you there. I'm not a Giants fan, but I hate the Yankees. So
the water's warm. Come on over, James. You don't really have much of a team left in that.
No.
Hopefully they stay over there, but you can.
I've already committed. If they leave, I'm going to become a Padres fan. Me and my son are going to become
San
Padres fans.
Diego.
It doesn't matter. He's got a buddy goes to college in San Diego, and no, we're pretty sold on being
right.
Padres fans. I don't like Machado, but I do like Bob
Manny
Melvin.
Machado. Yeah.
Machado. Yeah, I don't like him at all. But yeah, the whole
Got you.
battle with the
great
A's.
Padres fan. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best.
But outside of that, I'm okay with Bob Melvin, and they got some
Bob
good
Melvin's a man.
performers.
Shout out Bob
Sean
Melvin.
Manaea.
He's a man.
Yeah, he is a man. Okay, final thoughts from James. Number one, this is a big weekend in Kings basketball. I think it's like the game on Saturday. It's early. I think it's a 1:00 start against the Clippers. That's a pretty substantial game for this team. And then they come back the next night on the second day of a back-to-back. I have confirmed we will have breakfast for lunch, which is always a big deal for James.
Eggs made in bulk.
Yeah,
Don't
but
trust them.
I made suggestions that the pancakes were like, I don't know what was with them. It didn't matter how much syrup you poured on them. The syrup was absorbed until it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen like a dry pancake with and they weren't even like
Did it crunch?
No, they weren't crunchy. They were soft, but they broke apart and they just absorbed and it was really weird.
Huh. Have some
I've
thoughts,
asked
do
them
ya?
to maybe go back to waffles, because the chicken waffles.
Oh, dude, they
was
did
good.
chicken waffles. That was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Now we got the Frank's Red Hot there. We can have chicken waffles with Frank's Red Hot. So yeah, no, I that's number one. Number two, people get up and watch Team USA. That's gonna be super fun on Saturday morning. I think the game starts.
What channel is it on?
It's on Fox 40 at I think 10 a.m. I think the pregame starts. Oh no, it's gonna be 7 a.m. Yeah, that's an early one.
Yeah,
the
it's not gonna
pregame
happen.
starts I think at 6. Yeah, but I mean you got to be up early for the Kings game anyways.
Yeah.
Although you're not, none of us, no one, just so people know, none of the Sacramento media is going to LA for Kings Clippers on Saturday.
That game's a trap. It's a trap.
I still don't believe they're a single trap game for the Sacramento Kings. They're not good enough to have trap games yet, but
Early back-to-backs. Just weird.
2 early back-to-backs, yeah.
The
Very
first night
strange.
is a trap.
Well, I should just say the back-to-back is a trap. Just go 500. Just win one, lose one. If you can do that, great. Win both. If you're greedy, fine, but win one, lose one.
Yeah, you got to split because that 6-game road trip is absolutely brutal. So the 6-game road trip, Bucks, Cavs.
I have it here if you want. Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York, Philly, Toronto, Detroit.
Yeah, that's horrendous. That's
Anybody going to be on those on that trip?
I don't believe so.
I thought we all were. What are you talking about?
We're going to take a bus. Just
road trip.
Across.
Yeah.
A road trip. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. If you're still watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Jump on board with the Kings Beat, kingsbeat.com. Become a premium subscriber. You'll get an invite to the upcoming happy hour, which we hope is going to be next Thursday. But we're still juggling a little bit, just trying to confirm. And Sean's right. We probably should just set the date, and then hopefully it works out. And if not,
if it doesn't,
we can dip, dodge, duck.
We just do a bunch of chat, just a whole bunch of chat, and
yeah, we can do some crazy
kick it around
stuff
with the folks.
All right.
I always feel like sometimes we bring on the guests and it's great, but I'm sure they love it. I would imagine, but I just sometimes wonder we're not giving them enough time. I don't know. I always
think that, but then every once in a while, it just like the conversation becomes so enthralling that I throw it out there and people don't want to ask questions because it's just going. So
let us know. Like seriously, let us know. I read the comments. I haven't read the last comments, so I missed the De'Aaron Fox criticism or hatred or slapping us around for that.
The guy who's very committed to the Tyrese Haliburton.
That's pretty good.
I don't even think it's something bigger
funny.
than Tyrese. It's Tyrese something. That goes with Haliburton. I'm not sure. Very committed to that. Yeah.
He's committed to the bit. But put it in there. If there's something you want to see on the happy hours, I'm sure we could accommodate. We should get feedback.
I think usually the listeners talk in the half that you're not there for is kind of what's going on.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
That is such
shit
a
to do, man.
That is such a good point, Brenden. I think it is very possible that you missed that whole portion where they do talk. Because we have had some really good questions and some I open the mic up, people are there on video and they get to ask questions. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for joining us. We're having a great time on this journey. We just turned a year. Things are going really well, and somehow the Kings are, I think, they're 11-9, and they're above 500 at the 20-game mark. I did not expect that, but it's good to see. So for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you next week.
Did you wink?